Welcome back, readers. Ready for episode 46.
Let's go!
This time, we're exploring Stephen King's The Shining. Spine-tingling horror, a family trapped in a massive hotel for the winter. What could go wrong, right?
Oh, knowing Stephen King, so much can go wrong.
Right. I'm already getting chills.
Yeah.
And you usually love a good ghost story. If The Shining gets you in the mood for more spooky reads, you could check out Bookspace.
Oh, yeah. That's a fantastic app for finding new books.
It's perfect for connecting with other readers, sharing those creepy quotes that stick with you, and keeping your reading list organized.
Which, believe me, after this deep dive, your horror list might get a lot longer.
For sure. Okay, let's picture the Overlook Hotel. This huge, isolated resort in the Colorado Rockies. It's closed for the winter, snowed in. The only people there are Jack Torrance, his wife Wendy, and their son Danny.
And who knows what else.
Right. That isolation is terrifying, just like the Donner Party, remember?
Oh, yeah. Being trapped like that, it can really bring out the worst in people, and that's even before you add any supernatural elements.
Exactly. And King really makes you feel that. They're completely cut off, the road to the hotel's Sidewinder Pass, completely buried under snow, no escape. And on top of all that, Danny's got this secret, this gift, or maybe it's a curse. It's called The Shining.
Ah, yes, The Shining. It's not just some random superpower. King actually ties it to real psychology. You know, Danny has this imaginary friend, Tony.
Right, I remember Tony.
Well, he could be a part of Danny's shining, you know, like a manifestation of it. Or maybe just a way for Danny to cope with all the stress.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. So Tony could be a sort of psychological defense mechanism.
Exactly. There's actual research showing that kids, especially in tough situations, often create imaginary friends. But with Danny, it's different because of The Shining, because he can sense the Overlook's dark history, like all that evil soaked into the hotel itself.
And he's not the only one who can shine. Remember Dick Halloran, the cook at the Overlook?
Oh yeah, Dick Halloran.
Well, he has the gift too. And he actually warns Danny about the hotel, especially about room 217. Remember that story about the maid who saw something so awful in there? She lost her job just for talking about it.
It's like the Overlook wants to keep its secrets buried, wants to silence anyone who knows the truth.
Which makes you wonder what really happened there, right? Well, Jack finds a scrapbook that spills some of the secrets. And it's not pretty. Gangsters, shady business deals, even a gangland murder.
Wow.
Not your typical hotel history.
No, definitely not. And what's so interesting is it's not just random bad events. King uses it to show this pattern of violence, like the evils embedded in the Overlook itself.
So it's not just the people, it's the place itself.
Exactly. It makes you think, would anyone who stays there long enough end up corrupted by it? And poor Danny with his shining, he's like super sensitive to all that negative energy.
Which probably explains why he has that terrifying encounter in room 217. A decaying woman tries to strangle him, and he sees the word red rum everywhere. It's so creepy.
Red rum. But think about it. It's murder spelled backward. It's not just a spooky image. It's foreshadowing what's going to happen. King's a master of using those little clues.
Oh, absolutely. Like he's playing with your mind, making you question what's real and what's not.
Exactly. And that's what starts happening to Jack. It's not just ghosts or anything like that. It's the isolation, his drinking problem, his own issues. It all mixes together. And the Overlook just amplifies it all.
Like a pressure cooker about to explode.
And then boom, he snaps. That scene where he chases Danny with a roque mallet, pure nightmare fuel.
It's terrifying. It's like the hotel's taking control of him, turn him into a weapon.
Right. And then we have Dick Halloran. He senses that Danny's in danger and drives through a blizzard to get to the Overlook.
Talk about brave. He's amazing.
It's a powerful moment. It shows how human connection can still exist, even in the face of pure evil. But it also reminds us that no one's immune to the Overlook's influence.
You're right about that. Halloran ends up getting hurt pretty badly by Jack. And in the end, it's Wendy and Danny who barely escape with their lives, leaving Jack to die as the Overlook burns down.
That ending, though, remember that image of the burned hedge animals? It's like the evil's still there, imprinted on the land itself.
It's chilling. It makes you wonder if the evil is really gone or just waiting to come back.
It really makes you think, right? Is the evil truly gone, or is it just hiding, waiting?
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that The Shining isn't just about ghosts and stuff.
Yeah.
It's also about what's going on inside the characters, their struggles. Like Jack, for instance. He's not just a bad guy. He's got real problems.
Right, he's got addiction and anger issues, and he feels guilty about things, too. The Overlook didn't cause those problems, but it definitely made them worse.
It's like that saying, we all have a shadow self, those dark impulses we try to keep hidden. But isolation, like what Jack experiences at the Overlook, it can break down those defenses.
Exactly, like the hotel is a giant magnifying glass, making everything that's already there even bigger. And it's not just Jack, either. Wendy really stood out to me.
Yeah, Wendy's a fascinating character. She's often seen as just the scared wife, but she's so much stronger than that.
Right, she's trapped in this nightmare with a husband who's going crazy and a son who sees things she doesn't understand.
But she never gives up. She keeps trying to talk to Jack, to protect Danny, to find a way out.
Totally. Remember that scene when she finally snaps and grabs that baseball bat? She's not a helpless victim. She's a mother protecting her child.
She's incredibly resourceful. Even when faced with unimaginable horror, it makes you wonder how much of her strength comes from being a mom.
Yeah, there's this theory in psychology called attachment theory. It basically says that the bonds we form early on with our caregivers, those shape how we handle stress later in life. So Wendy's fierce love for Danny might come from her own need to create a safe and secure bond with him, even in the midst of all this chaos.
That's really interesting. It adds a whole new dimension to her character. And it makes me think about Danny, too. He's not just some kid with a special power. He's dealing with some really heavy stuff.
Absolutely. Imagine being 5 years old and sensing all this evil around you, having these terrifying visions, and you can't even explain it to your parents. It's no wonder he retreats into his shining and relies on Tony.
Speaking of Tony, do you think he's really just an imaginary friend? Or could he be something more? Maybe a part of Danny's shining, the protector.
It's up for interpretation.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so interesting. Tony could be a part of Danny's mind, a way for him to process everything he's sensing from the Overlook.
Like a shield against the hotel's darkness.
Right. But then there's also the possibility that Tony is something else entirely. Maybe even connected to the Overlook itself, trying to either guide Danny or manipulate him.
Now that is creepy. It brings us back to the question of whether the Overlook is actually alive, if it has its own goals.
And that ties into one of the most fascinating things about The Shining. The idea that places can hold memories and energy. Even Evil King doesn't just tell us the Overlook is haunted. He shows us.
You mean like with the scrapbook, the ghosts, and how the hotel seems to push Jack towards madness?
Exactly. It's not just a setting. It's a character with its own twisted history and motivations. King actually uses real-world examples of haunted places, like the Winchester Mystery House, where the architecture itself seems to reflect a dark past.
I never thought about it that way. So The Shining is more than a ghost story. It's exploring the idea that evil can stay in a place and affect the people who go there.
Right. And King goes even further by suggesting that evil might not just be supernatural. It can be built into the structures we create. Think about how he describes the Overlook. The fancy decorations, the maze-like hallways, the isolation, it's all designed to trap and confuse people.
That's true. It's almost like the Overlook is a physical representation of Jack's own internal struggles. The maze symbolizes his confusion, and the isolation mirrors his detachment from his family.
Exactly. It all comes back to symbolism. King uses it everywhere in the book, giving ordinary objects deeper meanings. Like that roque mallet Jack uses, it's not just a weapon. It represents his rage and aggression.
It's like King is saying, pay attention. There's more to this than you think. And that's what makes The Shining so much more than a typical horror story.
Absolutely. It's a psychological thriller, a family drama, and a reflection on the nature of evil all in one. And by connecting the supernatural to real psychology, King makes it even more terrifying.
So we have this haunted hotel that might be alive, a family on the verge of falling apart, and a ton of symbolism to unpack. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's time to face the climax of this story. We've seen the tension building, and now it's all about to explode. It's intense, right? All that tension just waiting to break. And it's not some quick jump scare. It's like a slow-motion train wreck. You can't look away.
Exactly. And that slow descent into madness is what makes it so scary. It's not just demons or anything. It's this gradual unraveling fueled by the Overlook and his own problems.
King knows how to build suspense. That psychological horror, it's just as unsettling as the supernatural stuff. And it's never more apparent than when Jack's chasing Danny with that mallet.
Oh, that scene is burned into my brain. The way King describes Jack's movements, his thoughts, it's like you're right there with Danny, feeling that terror of being hunted by your own father.
It's brilliantly done. And then that line when Jack smashes through the door, "Here's Johnny."
Oh gosh, I know, it's become this iconic line. But in the book, it's truly bone-chilling. That's the point of no return for Jack. when he completely gives in to the Overlook's evil.
Yeah, it's like the mask comes off and we see the real monster, the one that's been hiding underneath all along. And the scariest part, it's not some outside force. It's Jack himself twisted by the hotel.
It's a reminder that the scariest monsters are often the ones inside us, or the ones lying dormant waiting for the right moment. And just when it seems like all hope is lost, like Danny and Wendy are doomed, Dick Halloran shows up.
He's like this ray of hope, a reminder that even with all this evil, there's still good in the world. His courage is incredible. He risks his own life driving through Blizzard, all because he feels connected to Danny and wants to protect him.
It shows you that even in the darkest times, there are people who will fight for what's right. But Halloran's bravery isn't enough to stop the Overlook. He gets attacked by Jack. And for a while, we don't know if he'll make it.
King is so good at keeping us guessing, right? Will Halloran survive? Will anyone escape this nightmare? It shows how powerful the Overlook is, how dangerous.
Absolutely. It's not just about hurting the weak. It wants to control everything. Anyone who challenges it gets hurt. And that leads us to the final terrifying moments, when Danny and Wendy make their escape as the Overlook burns.
It's like something out of a movie. Suspense, close calls, pure terror. King doesn't hold back on the details. The heat, the smoke, the desperation. You feel like the Overlook itself is trying to pull them back in as it burns.
It's a powerful image. The hotel is a fiery monster trying to swallow them whole. But they get away. They escape, leaving Jack to die in the flames. It feels fitting somehow, like he was consumed by the very thing he embraced.
On one hand, it feels like a victory, right? The monster is defeated. But King always leaves you thinking, remember those burned hedge animals? That image sticks with you long after you finish the book.
It does. It makes you wonder if maybe the Overlook is physically gone, but the evil it represented is still out there, maybe looking for a new home.
And that's what makes The Shining such a powerful book. It's not just a story with a neat ending. It makes you think about the dark side of humanity, about the nature of evil, about the idea that some places are just tainted by the horrors they've seen.
We've come to the end of our deep dive into The Shining. We've explored the characters, the symbolism, and the questions it raises about evil and the power of place.
We've talked about how King blends psychology and supernatural elements, creating a story that's scary and thought-provoking. And it leaves you feeling unsettled. Like the story isn't really over. It's still with you whispering in the back of your mind.
Maybe that's the biggest takeaway. Evil isn't always easy to define or defeat. It can look like many things, and it might be closer than we think.
So next time you're in an old hotel, or even just a normal place, stop and listen. You might hear echoes of the past, whispers of those who were there before, and maybe you'll feel a chill, a hint that something darker is at play.
And on that note, we'll say goodbye. Until next time, happy reading and sweet dreams.